Hello, everybody, and welcome to Migrant Leaders to the Connect conference. Unfortunately, Elham's not able to be here today, so she does send her apologies. And we will be running this with some amazing stories, career stories from 6 mentors that we have today. And there'll be an opportunity to ask questions as well. So if anyone has any questions, please wait till the first 3 speakers have spoken, and then we will have an opportunity to ask questions. If you'd like to put them into the chat box as well, that's absolutely fine. And then Mohammed will be collecting them together, and we'll have 3 speakers, some time for questions, and then the next 3 speakers, and then time for more questions as well, and an opportunity for you to connect with the mentors as well today. So should we start off? So our Connect conferences are run monthly online. They're a great way of actually connecting with mentors. It's a good way of actually hearing career stories from mentors who have really got a vested interest and partner with migrant leaders, work for great organizations, and have a great career story to tell as well. So as mentees, you can actually see the progress and where you are now and where you can aspire to be as well. So this is the sort of structure of today. So myself, I'm part of the operations team. I support Fawzia and Elham as well. And working together with myself is Mohammed and Kathleen today. So we'll have 6 mentors speaking, as I mentioned, 3 first, break, for questions, 3 again, and then some more questions. And then we'll finish off with a wellness session. So we have Ali Shah today, Arafat Aziz, and Maya D'Angelo. And then Osama Rabbani, Pooja Baga, and Tom Benham Creswell. So can I hand over to you, Ali, to start off with?
Stu, thank you so much. Excellent. It's a real pleasure to be here. So I'm Ali Shah, and I am a data visualizer by trade, data analyst and business analyst as well, as the job title says. But my jurisdiction covers a lot of stuff at Shell. I've been affiliated with migrant leaders for the last decade. And yeah, just as my slide comes up, just a bit of background on me. I've been affiliated with migrant leaders for the last 10 years, which is quite a long time. But it's been a life-changing experience through and through. I started off as a mentee and became a mentor a few years later. And I'm really happy to say that you're on a really good path here. And it's been absolutely life-changing. There we are. Oh, it's a hidden slide.
Sorry.
No, that's fine.
There's a delay.
That's fine. So a bit of background for you. There's my photo in the top left, and that's me as a baby in the bottom there. Bit of interpersonal skills, I should say. So let's go through it. I am a 3rd generation British Pakistani. And what does that mean? It means that I've had a journey learning the culture of the UK and what it means to work in an organization. And it's been really, really interesting to see the change of the home life versus what happens in our workplaces. We're required to speak in a certain way to gel with our colleagues and employers. And going through that journey has been life-changing. And I'm really happy to tell you about what I've done so far and give you some insight and hopefully inspire you on your journey going forward. So starting out, that 3rd generation background, I was a young boy. I was a class clown. I enjoyed cycling with my friends in the hills. And I worked at my dad's factory, sweeping the floors. That was my first introduction to work. And when I get to GCSE level, I continue that class clown background, but I had a real big step up in education. I'm sure some of you can relate here when you got to A level or B Tech. It was a big jump. And so during my A levels, I was actually caring for my mum who fell sick. And she's still looking after her today, to be honest with you, but doing it to a much higher standard. School was fantastic. I applied myself in the latter part of my schooling, and I got to University of York. And for those who don't know, it's a red brick Russell Group university, and it's got a great reputation, like Migrant Leaders. But from there, that backbone of hard work, determination, and dedication really allowed me to excel. And I got a number of internships. I worked at L'Oreal for a bit, and that was quite fun down in London. I also won the York Higher Achieving Award for a volunteer project I did, which was my first introduction to data visualization. And we can go offline with it if you don't know what data visualization is. Happy to take you through it. But then I got to my adult life, and this is where Migrant Leaders came in. It was a real stunning opportunity for me, and I actually spoke to Ellen. She was the person that I spoke to initially, and I said to her, "Look, I'm struggling to get to the Big Four. I have no idea why I keep getting rejected at the final stage. I've got my psychometrics. I'm working hard. I've got all this experience behind me. What's going on?" Ali, it comes down to how you articulate yourself and how you deliver your message going forward. And from that springboard of working at a school at the time, trying to struggle for a real career step forward, I joined Migrant Leaders and had my first mentor, Alex Puymacher, who's based in Italy. And we got on really well. And she tutored me so well through my entire career journey. I actually just texted before this to say hello. So your mentors, they're there for you in and out of the program. She's been so instrumental to my entire career growth. So let me tell you a bit about what I've achieved in my adult life. I worked in banking. I worked at Deutsche Bank during their tax crisis. I was in the back office there. That was a real riveting time, but banking wasn't for me. It wasn't for me. I thought doing an accounting major at university, be able to go out and really enjoy it, but I didn't. So then I went to charity, and I didn't enjoy that either because the systems were too slow. So I said to myself, okay, how am I going to cope as an accountant with this credited ACA degree? Let me learn data. Which is a huge jump, right? But it's nonetheless what's driven my career so far. Complex information and giving that to stakeholders has been the most rewarding part of my career journey. So I taught myself data analysis. I became a contractor for the money. I won't lie to you, it was fantastic. And then I moved to fast-moving consumer goods at Mars, and now I work at Shell. And I'm really proud to say that I work at Shell. They're a phenomenal organization. I joined the carbon team to make the world a better place. Now I've ended up in the legal space. I'm directing a team there across the board of project management, data visualization, and analytics. And I couldn't have done it without Migrant Leaders. I'll be honest with you. I had no clue what I was doing. I was clever, but I didn't know how to talk. So my core learnings for you: never be deterred. Don't let rejection get in your way. Cultivate friendships that last. It's so important. Your fellow mentors and mentees, make sure you connect with them on LinkedIn. Research the world, understand the growth of the industries that you're interested in. Try and apply your skill sets there and excel. And always move towards your goals. Not just career goals, but personal goals as well. And that's me in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, Ali. There's a lot you've done there, and thank you for being a part of Migrant Leaders and also being here today and actually wanting to give back to be a mentor and help these young people as well.
Thank you so much. Thanks to Migrant Leaders. I couldn't have done it without you guys.
Oh, very kind, very kind. And next we have Arafat.
Hi, everyone. I'm Arafat bin Aziz. Really excited to be here, and hopefully I will be inspiring you with my career journey and academic journey as well. So a bit about me. I'm currently working at National Grid as a graduate strategy analyst. I recently joined a different team, though. It's part of the graduate program, so I'm working with market analytics right now. So a bit of intro about me. I was born and raised in Dhaka, which is the capital of Bangladesh. It's a country known for its world-class garments industry. We're also known for our hospitality and our delicious cuisine as well. And recently we made the headlines last year by throwing the authoritarian government. So yeah, I mean, you may have heard of Bangladesh, and we do have a huge diaspora of the Bangladeshi community living in the UK. So I did my undergrad from the Institute of Business Administration. That's within University of Dhaka, and I studied Bachelor of Business Administration there. I majored with marketing, and I had HR as my main minor. And while I was doing my undergrad, there was the time of COVID and there was lockdown as well. So I decided to put myself to use by doing some remote internships. So as you can see, there's the flag of the US and Denmark. So I did some remote pro bono internship work with some startups and some enterprises based in the US and Denmark during that time. And I was also awarded with the CSCA, which is Certified Supply Chain Analyst, while I was doing my undergrad. After finishing my undergrad, I moved into telco. I moved into Banglalink, which is the third largest telecommunications in Bangladesh. And I joined a graduate program there as well, which is quite similar to this one here at National Grid. It's also 18 months program, and I had the opportunity to rotate with different teams. It's a popular video streaming platform called Toffee. I spent a lot of time working there with content team, the marketing team, the platform team as well. I also spent a huge chunk of time with the marketing and communications team. And then eventually, after coming off the graduate program, I joined commercial strategy there. And I stayed there for 1 year, which allowed me to hone my presentation skills and also working with different stakeholders and understanding different business requirements, project management, and all that. So yeah, commercial strategy, that was a very pivotal role for me in my career. And then I decided to challenge myself a little bit further because I was getting a little bit complacent. So I decided to move to the UK to pursue my master's from Warwick Business School. And I enrolled myself in Masters in Management, which is one of the flagship programs from Warwick Business School. And during that time, I was appointed as the postgraduate ambassador for my course. So I worked with the marketing and the recruitment team to reach out to potential students and also different current students as well to talk about the opportunities and also share my experiences there. And while I was doing the master's degree there, I also had the opportunity to visit Cape Town. This was part of an international exchange module. It was called social entrepreneurship. So had the opportunity to go to different entrepreneurs, have some field visits, and also just soak in the Cape Town beauty as well. So that was definitely the highlight of my master's course there. And I was also invited to present at the 2024 annual Masters in Management Conference due to one of my contributions to one of the modules named Strategies for Global Economy. Towards the end of my master's, I got the opportunity to do an internship with the UK Civil Service. This was with the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, which kind of feeds well into my current role at National Grid. It's also within the energy sector, and it was also strategy and communications. So had like great opportunity working with different teams there, and also it was a very eye-opening for me to have first full-time experience in the UK and understand the differences and the nuances between the work culture here and also like back home in Bangladesh. And after that, I joined as a graduate strategy analyst at National Grid. So as I mentioned, that this is an 18 months program. I'm done with the first placement, which was with the strategy team. I'm currently working with market analytics, and I have also been appointed as the editor of the graduate newsletter, which we publish monthly. So I'm in charge of looking after what's going on with the graduate cohort, and also if there's anything exciting that's worth publishing. So that's a little bit about my journey, the careers, and also in terms of the academic journey. In terms of my learnings, I would say the first one is obviously it's about take a leap of faith. So back home, I had a very stable job. I was living with my family there with my parents, and which is the norm back home. I'm sure like a lot of people might be able to relate to that. And it's just that I just wanted a different challenge for myself. I just felt like that I'm kind of within my comfort zone right now. So I just wanted to basically see what I'm capable of. And that's the reason why I took this leap of faith. Sometimes may not pay off, but in my case it did. But it's all about showing the courage and seeing like what excites you. I would say the second one is consistency is the key. I mean, every small step you take can make a huge difference if you're consistent and disciplined enough to stick to them. And then obviously complacency can stall the momentum. I personally have taken up some upskilling recently because I felt like that, complacency was kind of getting to me again. So I would say that it's always important to understand how you want to shape yourself in the future, where you see yourself in the 5 years time, and maybe over the longer horizon as well. So yeah, upskilling continuously can definitely, it's not just about landing your dream job, but it's also about investing in yourself and having a continuous development. So yeah, those would be my learnings from my journey so far, and that's kind of me in a nutshell.
Thank you so much, Arafat. And it's, very interesting to see the way your career, where you're born and brought up in Bangladesh, majority of your career there, and then you've only been in the UK for the last sort of 18 months as well, so, and then still working forwards towards a career path, personal goals, things like that. So thank you. Thank you.
No worries, Neha. It's my pleasure to be here.
And next we have Maya.
Hello, everyone. Lovely to meet you all virtually. My name is Maya D'Angelo. I work for Smith & Nephew, and it's been really inspiring so far hearing from Ali and Arafat about their journeys. I hope that I can share a different perspective, being a young woman and kind of very newly figuring out what I'm really passionate about really in my career. So going back to my very humble beginnings in Iran. I was born in the Middle East. You can see why Elham's story and her start to this organization really inspired me and resonated, because we are from the same place. And I moved to the UK with my family when I was about 6 years old. And I'm now 25 to put things into perspective. So when I moved over here, I didn't speak any English. There was really no preparation for the move. It was very much the fact that my father felt like having two daughters, we were more likely to have a brighter future in a country where equality is a bit more of a thing than in Iran because of the unfortunate political climate that there was. So we moved over here and I was just put into school. There was no kind of plans for learning how to speak English. It was kind of figure out what everyone was saying using body language. And it gave me really good skills, I think, in terms of reading the room and figuring out what people were thinking without actually speaking. So the biggest challenge I'd say in my education early on was the language barrier. Once I figured that out, I very quickly realized I wasn't very academic. I was good at school and I'd get great grades, but it wasn't because I was really passionate about studying. It was just that my father was Middle Eastern and he really wanted me to study. And I think that will resonate with quite a few people who come from other countries, because our parents sacrificed so much to get us here for a brighter future. And naturally, they want us to do well academically. So I was always told that that was kind of number one priority in my life. So I excelled at the arts and other things at school, but the main thing was academics. So I went to University of Derby, lived in Nottingham, to give you a bit of an idea of, I never left home. I was very close with my family. So I studied at University of Derby and I did business management with a focus on sales and marketing. I think it was quite evident early on that my strengths did lie in business management and on all things commercial, but I still had no clue at this stage what I wanted to do. I just knew that that's what I was good at. I was good at business, I was good at speaking to people, and I thought that's probably where I'll have the best shot in terms of spending money on a very expensive degree. So I ended up leaving university in the middle of COVID, hence the masked girl. That's not me, but I was class of 2020, and I graduated with a in a really terrible job market where I had no real clear idea of where I wanted to go. To give you an idea, my grades were really good in school in everything apart from science. So the only thing I didn't contemplate was the career I actually ended up going down, which was pharmaceutical sales. And that was just due to having a friend who was doing it at the time, and they urged me to try it out. And I kept shutting down the idea because I just felt like I'd be no good at it, having no clinical background, no idea of how the science of it all works. Despite that, I interviewed for a 2-month-long position. It was a temporary job with an agency, and that landed me a role with Seqirus for 2 months, which is a huge vaccine company, and it was selling flu vaccines to GPs and to pharmacies. And this was remote over the phone, and it was through a third party, so it wasn't a headcount role. I was told time after time, you know, this will be a 2-month contract, then you'll go into redeployment and we'll find you another job in the industry, because the company didn't want permanent employees. It's a seasonal product, so you only sell it for flu season. So they had no capacity to or desire to take anyone else on permanently. Now, in my first couple of weeks working at that job, I figured out very quickly it was very in line with what I wanted to do. I was super passionate. I learned all the science, and I realized actually I was limiting myself, because the things you're good at, but the things you can open yourself up. You've got the ability to learn. If you leave with a degree, you probably have the ability to learn. So, you can pick up things that you previously haven't been good at in school, and you shouldn't, shut yourself down. That was one of the key things I learned, because I enjoyed learning all the science, but I also enjoyed the impact and the part we played in the patient's journey. So we would get, the best deals to their GPs, would get the best kind of vaccines to them. And then at the end of the day, we'd get all the stats of how many people were vaccinated due to the work that we did. So I ended up working very hard at that job and securing myself a position from a 2-month contract to a permanent role. And I ended up staying there for 18 months. At 18 months, I felt, all right, I've done everything I can. I've progressed. I've done the team kind of lead roles where I'm training up other people and taking on additional tasks. There was really nowhere else to go in that role. And I was headhunted for a company called Promatica Digital, which was more on the software side of it. So I went from selling medication to GPs to selling software to the healthcare sector. And it was a big jump because it was a national business development role rather than a sales role. And I was put on a fast track program for account management. So I was essentially taught by these really experienced people how to map out new accounts, how to go in and plan our commercial activity. I was really the only person doing commercials because it was a tech startup. Everyone else was very technical. Now, the person who hired me was from a commercial background, so I felt like I was in great hands. But unfortunately, after 8 or 9 months of doing that, she got replaced by someone who had a technical background. So my mentorship, my guidance just kind of went out the window, and I suddenly I became the person who had to run the ship commercially. And it was a very humbling experience, because I sat down and I was like, I'm not ready. I'm not at that stage of my career where I can do this. It's a huge gap between where I should be to be able to do this task. And I've not got the right guidance anymore, because all the mentoring and everything. And this is where I found out what the value of mentoring was really. And I think in every role that you go into, you need to have some level of, despite being in management or wherever you may be in the organization, you still need someone there to mentor you and develop your skills, because everyone kind of needs to move forward. And I very quickly realized that the support wasn't there any longer, and I wasn't able to step up to that role. So I went back to the original agency that got me the Seqirus role, and I was very honest about what had happened. And they said, well, we've got a wound care role. Now, in what I've learned, I've put lack of passion is infectious. And this is where I nearly missed out on having my dream job. Because in the time that I was looking for roles, I interviewed for another wound care role with one of our competitors, which I won't name. But this was an online interview with the hiring manager, and I knew nothing about wound care. But that person's attitude, the person who would have been my manager, that person's outlook, because I'm the sort of person that will ask you a lot of questions when I go to an interview, because I want to know what you think of the organization and what your experience is. And the impression that that person gave me is that they weren't passionate. Their product wasn't making much of a difference in the marketplace. There wasn't much room to expand and grow. And it just gave me an overall really negative mentality of like what wound care was, that it was this thing that didn't matter, and it was a small part of healthcare that didn't really have a huge impact. And me not being clinical, I paired that with the interview, and I was like, well, healthcare seems boring. Wound care seems boring. I don't want to go into wound care. I want to go into something more important in healthcare. So when this role came up with Smith & Nephew, and they said, well, it's a remote sales role, I said, well, you know, I've interviewed for a role, I got offered it, and I didn't want it because the person just seemed really bored with their life. And they said, well, why don't you sit down with the hiring manager and speak to them? So I sat down with the hiring manager for the role, and I spoke to them. And obviously, me being here to 2.5 years later, and going from a contract role to headcount and moving across the country to do this full time, I really learned that speaking to the wrong people with the wrong attitude can really make you miss out on opportunities, because a lack of passion and a lack of desire to actually fully immerse yourself into something can be quite infectious. And that goes with all types of energy. After speaking to the hiring manager, learning about the company, I've really found out that wound care essentially covers everything, from incision to kind of open wounds in the community to non-healing wounds, people that are really, really struggling with long-term wounds and wounds that are being mismanaged, and how much they cost in the NHS. So it was a new world to me. I did that role for 18 months, and I was certain that I didn't want to work anywhere else. I didn't want to do anything else. And all the progression that I wanted was within this company, and specifically with my team. Now, I was based in Nottingham, and the team I was working with covered Yorkshire and the Northeast all the way up to Scotland. And so when a vacancy came up in Yorkshire, I applied for it. And unfortunately, they didn't think that my experience was enough to cover the patch for Yorkshire. But they thought that I interviewed particularly well. So they offered me a role in Scotland. So I up and moved from Nottingham to Scotland. And for about 10 months, I was the account manager for half of Scotland. And it was the most brilliant experience. It was in surgical theatres, kind of advising our surgeons and our nurses how to use our wound care products, out in the community, doing healthcare audits and facilitating kind of healthcare improvement projects. And it was the best time of my life. And then after about 10 months, the Yorkshire role that I originally applied for came up again. And I went to my manager and I said, look, I've gone and gotten the experience. Would you consider me for this role so I can move a bit closer to my family? Because I've left them behind and gone to Scotland for 10 months. And she did. So as of 1st of April, I moved to Yorkshire to become the account manager for Yorkshire. And again, it's unlocked a whole new world of healthcare, commercials, just things that I never ever thought in my life I would be interested in or I'd be any good at. But it's just about opening yourself up to new experiences and not allowing other people's lack of passion to kind of withhold you from having your own experience of certain industries. And I think that pretty much covers my journey so far.
Thank you so much, Maya. And I think from your sort of career story, it just goes to show what you were selling in terms of vaccines, to then going on to Smith & Nephew, learning about certain products to be able to then talk about it and sell it. And as you say, just keeping a very open mind and not letting anyone sort of cloud over any kind of ambition that you want to sort of go into. So that's great. Mohammed, should we go to some questions now?
Sure, Neha. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Mohammed. Thank you all for your contribution and your unique stories. We have received quite a few questions, but I selected 3 based on the most common themes. So the first one is actually for Maya. The question is, what surprised you most about working in the medical and healthcare sector?
I think what surprised me the most is the role that we play in making healthcare professionals' jobs easier. That was from my perspective to do with my role. But also, I didn't realize what the burden that we keep hearing about, because we keep hearing about this burden on the NHS. I didn't actually realize what that looked like until I was in the NHS and I was in hospitals and I was out in the community, and you can just see the strain. And I think industry has a huge responsibility, as in our companies, to relieve some of that burden as and when we can, because I don't think there's a real plan or any funding in place for anything to change internally NHS wise. So I think the most surprising thing was how much we're allowed to get involved and do. But equally, it has to be a partnership. So if the healthcare professionals allow you to, you can fulfill that. But if sometimes they have their internal policies, and so that can present one of the biggest challenges as well, of wanting to help, but you're not able to.
Thank you very much, Maya. The second question is for Arafat. So Arafat, your journey involved lots of traveling. So the question here is, how did you stay motivated while studying and working across different countries?
So in terms of traveling, I would say that it's kind of like the motivator for me, because I like exploring different places. I like going to different countries and just exchanging culture with different people and understanding more about culture and all that. So while that may be a deterrent for some people, because sometimes like traveling gets in your way of being productive, or sometimes like being motivated, I would say it's actually a tonic for me. I kind of consider that as a huge motivation, because I would be able to get to know different people, try out some new cuisine, and also like just learn a lot about different cultures. And in terms of like managing the traveling, I would say even now, like I have to go to London once a week. I'm based in Leamington Spa in Warwick. I go to the Warwick office like 2 or 3 times a week, but I still have to go to the London office like once a week. So it's mostly about time management, and also prioritizing like what should come first to you, and like having like clear boundaries as well. That also really helps you. So I personally feel like that work should not consume someone. Even though you're really passionate about something, you should always have a healthy work-life balance. So that's kind of like the thing that I always focused on. And I would say that even when I was a student, and like when I'm like working now, and like back home when I was working there, I would say that's the thing. I mean, like having clear boundaries, and also prioritization. You can't be like, jack of all trades. You will be realizing that sometimes you have to like pick and choose which battles you want to play. So that's, I would say, one of the things that really helped me in terms of managing my travel and also staying focused.
Thank you very much, Arafat. And the last question is for Ali. So Ali, this question is from a student who's also interested in data analytics. So the question is, do I need to be good at maths to work in the industry or the job you do?
A great question. Great question. Working in data covers a variety of different skill sets, from designers to project managers to data analysts and scientists and engineers. A large part of the mathematics works can be done with ChatGPT. I won't lie to you. You have to know how to search things resourcefully. That's the key definition of what you need to do. In my particular job, I do a lot of design, a lot of stakeholder management, But it's really and truly the way that I approach data that sets me apart. Working in legal, you can imagine a lot of numbers. The numbers are how many clients do we have? And that's additive. It's not too hard. I wouldn't let it deter you to be not talented at mathematics, because if you're passionate, hard work can take over. That's it.
That's great. Thank you, and thank you for all your insights with the questions. Moving on, we will now go to our next three speakers, and we have Osama, who's next up.
Thank you very much, Neha, and a pleasure to hear Ali, Maya, and Arafat, your journeys, like genuinely inspiring. So my name is Osama. I was born in Pakistan, which has the best biryani in the world, no matter what anyone else says, hence the picture. When I was 15 days old, I moved to Saudi Arabia. So I grew up in the Middle East, speak broken Arabic, to study in Malaysia, because at the time when I finished my A-levels, it was a time when having the name Osama, a Pakistani passport, and lots of Saudi entry, re-exit stamps couldn't get you near an airport flight to fly to the West, let alone anything else. So I decided, look, someone gave me good advice, look east. So I looked east, and I went to Malaysia. I was really only given two options growing up. And my parents were very, very specific. I could either become a neurosurgeon or an accountant. I don't know why they came up with those two options. I don't think they know either. But I had to choose one. I did not like the sciences at all. It was the only thing I struggled with academically at school. So I decided to become an accountant. Hence, I researched that the UK is a great place for accounting, and I applied to many, many jobs in the world, filled out over 99 applications. When the first rejection comes through, it's depressing. After the 10th, it's like, right. But eventually, after interviewing quite a few, I managed to get a job in London, started my career with BDO. And the reason I chose this job, because I had two offers. I had Deloitte in Nottingham and I had a BDO in London, is just because when I was being interviewed by the partner, he asked me all about my family, my background, my interests, how I enjoyed cricket, drew me a map. There was no Google Maps on smartphones at that time, on how to get to Lords. Whereas the Deloitte partner was all about competency after competency and more questions. So I was like, I want to work in a place which values me as a person. So hence I chose BDO. One of the things which really helped me in my career was I did have a gap year because I graduated at the height of the financial crisis. So the whole thing got deferred, but it was a Pakistani version of a gap year, right? So my parents sent me back to study. And they, and they were like, yes, to do your accounting, because I had my job secure, these are the exams you have to do, so just do them in advance. But I am grateful for that, right? And I think our common backgrounds, the drive which our parents has is an asset, which really, really helps us. And sometimes we take that for granted. But that really helped accelerate my career because there was no college to go to. Whilst the rest of my intake were spending 8 weeks going to Kaplan, I was working because I did not have to give those exams anymore. So whilst, yes, I did not go traveling the world, which would have been impossible on a Pakistani passport anyway, but I ended up just accelerating my career. And then genuinely, I was lucky to have some amazing mentors, right? He gave me lots and lots of tips, and I'm still in touch with them. So that's a common theme coming out, everyone you've heard from. Somehow or the other, I became an expert in energy and natural resources, which I still claim to be. I spent lots and lots of time in oil and gas, mining, diamonds, gold. Spent lots of time in West, South, East Africa, Far East, seen lots of amazing things. Would be happy to share those stories at another time. but each one of those helped me build my character. After I finished with BDO, when I got my indefinite leave to remain, the first thing which you do if you're in a professional services firm is you look to leave. So I started looking elsewhere. I joined another professional services firm, KPMG, in 2016 and switched careers to become a consultant, not knowing what that actually means. But we produce pretty slides. We offer solutions to any problem, as I've realized. And currently, I am on a secondment in Saudi Arabia. So 360 degrees back to where I started. I am towards the end of my secondment, and I'm looking to extend it because the Middle East is a great part of the world to be in at this time. When my role in KPMG is to bring revenue and sales, and when the West is going down economically, the Middle East is powering up and up and up. So it's actually pleasantly surprised to be in a country which is economically thriving, because the news is different, people's perspectives are different, the conversations are different to what I was used to in London. And just briefly, right, the 3 key lessons as I've learned, and a lot of these themes are common across what you've heard, right? But the first is, you have to drive your own growth. The common themes across what you heard from Ali, Maya, Arafat, and from the ones who present as well, right, is, I decided to do something else. I was becoming complacent. I did not enjoy what I was doing. My mentor was not driving me well enough. So they felt that need to drive themselves. So if there is one thing you take away, right, you have to do it yourself a little bit, right? No one will do it for you. There will be amazing mentors to guide you through this. There will be amazing mentors to coach you, but you actually have to take that step yourself towards growth, and then it's not easy. The second thing is genuinely invest time with your mentors, right? The more time you spend with them sharing, because they tend to be removed from what you're doing, so you can share more with them, it really, really benefited me, right, throughout my life. And I still speak to just before coming on this call, right, in a life in the Big Four isn't easy. The reason I'm wearing this suit is not because I want to look smart in front of you, it's because my day hasn't ended, right? And it's 8 p.m. and my kids want me to go with them and go to bed. So it is challenging. That's the nature of the career I've signed up for, right? So we need to spend a lot of time with mentors navigating through that. And I was just talking to my mentor, the person who helped me accelerate my journey, because when I joined KPMG, I think 3-4 months later, I'd resigned because I was like, I'm done. This is not for me. I want to leave. I was living, no offense, Arafat, in Leamington Spa, not far from it. I was actually on National Grid. One of the toughest projects I've spent 2-3 years on National Grid, so I know that organization really well. And it was tough. It was difficult, and I was going through a difficult phase. But then the people who pulled me through literally held my hand, and I took back my resignation, which is quite rare, 2 months into a 3-month resignation period, because I was guided by someone, and it was the best decision I ever made, because my career did accelerate because I followed his guidance and advice. So invest time with your mentors. Trust me on this. Sometimes it's annoying, but it really value. And the final thing you would have noticed, the common theme, and I'm sure you will continue to notice, is that leaders in general have amazing soft skills. So yes, academics matter, yes, grades and all of that, but the ability to talk, what Ali was talking about, the ability to make people laugh, the ability to navigate through problems, the ability to command a room, the ability to find a solution in a problem is I'd say perhaps far more important as you accelerate through your career than any of the technical skills you will gather. At the end of the day, it comes down to soft skills, right? We sell, we've got big sales targets, and I'm sure Maya will agree to this. There's lots of people who are selling the same product, the same service at the same level. And what then differentiates you is the relationship you have, how much trust they build on you, how you got on in that first conversation with them, right? So it does come down to this. Yes, you need your bases, but then it does come down to the soft skills. So that is me, and I am new to Migrant Leaders. I feel slightly ashamed, right? This is my first meeting. and I've just been assigned my first mentor. And the reason I'm doing that is I think it's a great investment, right? So yes, I'm in Saudi. Yes, it's tough, but I want to invest time in this, hopefully to pass on. So thank you for the opportunity, and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Osama. It's a very inspiring story, career story of yours. And also going back to what you want to impart in terms of wisdom to these mentees, and coming from Maya and Arafat and Ali as well, that the mentor aspect is also such a big thing. And that's what we as migrant leaders offer to you young mentees. So, the more you invest with your mentor, the more you'll get out of it as well. Thank you. And next we have Pooja.
Hello. Slightly different format to everyone else in terms of the presentation. But I guess, first of all, thank you very much. Really great stories from everyone. I was just listening to the stories and thinking there are quite a few similarities in my own career journey. I am fairly new to migrant leaders. I think when Ellen approached me, I did sign up, but I was fairly new in my role as well. So I wasn't able to give a lot of attention to this. But yes, I'm here now and open to any questions at Connections, happy to help. I have been a mentor for a very long time, but this platform is new. So really excited. And I guess the word migrant really resonated with me because I'm a migrant myself. So I'll quickly take you through my journey. I was born in Delhi, brought up, educated in India, through and through Delhi girl, if anyone knows what that means, and can identify with it. We can talk about it later if you want to. What does that mean? I was an economics graduate, and I did my MBA in sales and marketing. I still remember growing up, my mum asked me the question, what do I want to do when I grow up, during your, what do you want to do as a career? And I come from a lineage of doctors, my dad, my uncles, cousins, brothers, everyone, doctor. And I remember telling her that I don't want to be a doctor. And the question she asked me was, she actually turned around and she said, I didn't ask you what you don't want to be. I did ask you what you wanted to be. And I said, I don't know. And I'll find out. And here I am. And if you ask me today what I want to be or what I want to do, I'm not saying when I grow up because I'm fairly grown up, but if you still ask me the question, where do I want to go next? The answer I'll give you is, I don't know. It's a journey for me still. And my career has been completely zigzag. My education has been completely zigzag. That's why my strapline is almost, every time I talk to youngsters, students, graduates, mentees, I always say my life is totally in beta. I'm still testing and discovering what comes next. I joined British Airways straight out of my MBA, and was quite lucky to get a sales executive, sales support job there. Very happy with what I was doing, got married, and then my husband decided to move to the UK, move his business to the UK. And lo and behold, I had to move to the UK. And I still remember the day when I went into my office to resign and I met my general manager sales, and he looked at me and he said, why are you resigning? And I said, well, we have to move to the UK. And he said, do you know where British Airways are based? And I said, yeah, UK. We are a global organization. Yes, we are. And why are you resigning again? So I guess that was quite a pivotal moment in my life where I kind of realized the power of talking to people about your own situations and how everyone helps. Had I not spoken to anyone about it, had I not, opened up and said, this is the problem, it probably was very visible on my face. I was really upset resigning from a really good job. And he kind of said, look, I'm going to the UK next week. Give me your CV. I'll try and see what I can find out. I gave many job interviews and I managed to get a job in the UK at British Airways as a training executive. Now, a sales executive turning into a training executive and almost coming into the UK, starting my life here as someone who's going to train on cargo logistics. No idea what that thing is all about. Quite underconfident in terms of my command over this, this topic. But then I threw myself into learning. I asked for help. I got lots and lots of help. And I still go back and think, why did I actually get the job? I got the job because I was willing to put my hand up and say, I will do it. And sometimes you have to be quite naive in your career, where you kind of go, or your journey about learning, and go, put your hand up and say, yeah, I'll do it, and then find a way of doing it. And you will see that as a theme throughout my career journey. I did that job for about 3-4 years. Fantastic, learned a lot, and almost fell into something called project management, which some of you have already talked about. And I guess that's where I found a real, when you can see a passion in your head, kind of go, oh, I really like this, because I think the controlling side of my brain and the logical side of my brain kind of came together with project management. I did a few projects at British Airways. I was still at British Airways, Terminal 5 being one of them. I'm sure most of you are quite young to remember what happened when Terminal 5 opened, but some of you might remember it was a disaster. I learned a lot from there. And again, it's really good to have, don't think of your failures. They're not your failures. They're actually what I call them as learning pathways. So I was creating these learning pathways through some of the failing projects to say what not to do. So I learned a lot along the way. Did some really complex, major transformation programs at British Airways, and somehow always gravitated towards doing projects, programs, transformation, operational roles, linked to technology and data and digital. The last one that I did at British Airways, which kind of changed my career, was this crew resourcing program of work that had been tried twice before and had failed. And I still remember my operations director coming to me and saying, do you know what, do you want to give, we want to do this. This is really critical. And if any of you remember, it was one of those green screen systems, hadn't been upgraded for years, had about, over 100 links and feeds, lots of historical data. And if the transformation didn't happen correctly, the CAA could have stopped British Airways from flying, because crew hours are quite restrictive. It's a regulatory requirement. Anyway, a few years later, it was a success. And that's when the then tech lead at British Airways called me and said, would you like to join technology? And I kind of thought about it, and I said, why should I join tech? I'm having such a brilliant time here. Anyway, we pursued that conversation a couple of times. And then I went back to my days of when I took the leap. I thought, I'm in my comfort zone. I took the leap when I came into the country. Why shouldn't I do it again? And I think from then on, my career completely changed. One of the first programs I did, I became a portfolio manager in tech. And one of the first programs that was given to me was IAG was being formed with British Airways and Iberia. And I was accountable for making sure that the systems got integrated. Now, again, a great learning there. Amazing technical brains, both at British Airways and at Iberia. I think the issues was this creating this bridge between business and technology and data and digital, so the teams could actually sit together and talk and come up with solutions together. I remember living most of my time in those 2.5 years in Madrid, making sure that culturally people understand how we work with each other. There wasn't a question of Big Brother coming in, British Airways and Iberia, the distrust. It was more about building a bridge. And again, this is a key learning throughout your career. It's all about managing people and personalities. It's about bringing people together. It's about co-creating. We cannot do anything in vacuums. So that was a very big learning as well, to say, you get experts along the way. There are lots of experts, and you are experts in your field, I'm sure. How do we bring people together to co-create and have these solutions that are scalable? Again, a huge success, but I did run into a problem where I thought, okay, where am I going next? I have done so much of the same before. And again, I'll say something which is slightly controversial, but I do say a lot of things that are controversial. The people generally don't resign from British Airways. They're normally, they're either live forever at British Airways, or there are some redundancies, whatever. I decided to resign from British Airways, which was a very big step. Until date, people asked me, did you actually resign from British Airways? And I said, yes, I did, because I found a glass ceiling. I could not go any further. And I thought, right, I'm really bored of doing the same thing. I want to do something completely different. That's when I joined TfL. And I was their head of ERP strategy and transformation. So ERP, for those of you who don't know, is something that manage employee resource platform. It actually manages all your human resources, finance, commercial activities and interactions. So I looked after that portfolio of projects for about 2.5 years. Started the biggest transformation at TfL, and then the new mayor came in, and at that point Crossrail wasn't going very well, so the funding stopped. I was asked to sit on my hands for 6 months. I got terribly bored and I resigned. So I guess there's a theme here where it says, if I get bored of things, I need to challenge my brain. And I think that's what I have learned along the way, that it's great to have a profession and a passion and a path where you know what you need to do, but keep learning and almost always look out for other areas where you can learn, which is not clearly in your line of sight, because that will give you a much broader understanding of the context of where you need to go in the future and will help you in your career. I looked for other areas which were changing, other companies, and Royal Mail was one company that was looking to change, big transformation, both in e-commerce, customer facing, sales, marketing. John led the transformation in customer facing areas, and you would have seen some of the changes in Royal Mail over the years, where you get tracking information, you get emails, you get texts, you get photo on delivery, all of those things. Yes, I led the team that launched all of that. In fact, created new, changed the complete platforms, legacy tech, cloud transformation, and then moved into the operational area of Royal Mail. So I almost did 2 stints at Royal Mail, and I say that they're two very distinct stints at Royal Mail, where it was commercial and operational. And I think, again, looking at operational area at Royal Mail, very engineering focused, quite male dominated, always favored, or almost looked for people who were from a similar background. And I was quite a different, I was from a very different background. And yes, I didn't look the same, basically. So initially it was quite an uphill battle to get a seat at the table. But then eventually, I think the skills that I brought to the table, including my business background, including the fact that I've been, sales and marketing, I traveled around the world, I'd done various roles, and I wasn't a linear tech person, kind of really helped me open the door and have those detail level conversations where it was all about business development. It was all about business change. It was all about, how can we make our business better? How can we deliver better business outcomes? So again, the reality was more about how can we change our business with tech rather than tech for tech's sake. And another thing, which, as I said, I've always learned along the way. So I've done huge amount of courses in tech to make sure that I learn about tech. I've done change management diploma when I came into this country. So all about how to do business change, how to drive business change. So what I call myself, I'm like a constant learner. So I really want to learn. I'm very inquisitive. And I think that helped me throughout my journey. After delivering change and transformation at Royal Mail, yeah, I got a bit bored because I'd been through the COVID times as well, where Royal Mail was a part of the national infrastructure. Lots of changes had to be implemented to make sure we kept the country running. Someone knocked and said that there is a group CIO role going at the Guardian. Would you like to change your role and join the media sector? And I thought, wow, I've never worked at the media sector. What a fantastic opportunity. What a fantastic brand. I really like, Guardian as a brand, the integrity, the values. I know it's more left center, but as I said, the integrity, the values, the trust of that organization, and to be leading tech, data, digital, everything to do with AI. I jumped at the opportunity, and here I am a year later. I guess just following the same themes about what I've learned, I've mentioned a few things. But as I said, definitely ask for help. I've had mentors along the way. I mentor a lot of people, and I mentored people, fairly earlier on in my career. And I especially opened doors for people like me who are from similar backgrounds, people from business who wanted to join tech but never really knew how to do it. I created secondments. I have always championed the DEI agenda. Something I didn't mention before was when I came to the UK, I think embedding myself culturally was much easier. Embedding myself in a corporate world was more difficult. And I didn't want anyone else to face similar problems along the way. So I helped a lot of colleagues. And I guess something which I have, as I said, ask for help. It's not just mentors. Something I have used extensively is my family and friends network, because you will need it along the way. Please don't think you can do everything yourself, because no one can. And I guess the way I look at mentors is I always look at mentors. I tend to have two mentors. Someone who's like me, which is really good because you have the chemistry. But I also look for mentors who are not like me. Someone who has a completely different personality because they come with a completely different perspective. So you can almost learn along the way. So try and think of your mentors slightly differently to say, oh, they're not like me, but I might learn something different from them. Definitely have some fun along the way. Yeah, don't take your life too seriously. Have some fun along the way. Follow your passion. If you find things interesting, go and do it. Go and give it a shot. Always good to do that. I have only learned as I've raised my hand and said, yeah, that looks fun. Let me go and try that bit. And something that I have also learned is that 80% is good enough. Never look for, I mean, if you're 100% match for another job or another, if you're looking for a career change, that's great. But I've always looked at things as, oh, if I'm a 70 to 75% to 80% match, that's great, because that 20% is my learning and my growth. So always remember that 80% is sufficient. Yeah, and that's it. I'm here if anyone wants to reach out or have any questions.
Thank you very much, Pooja. Very interesting career path and career story. And it's so great to hear about, putting yourself forward, having the courage. And I think that's also the message to give to the mentees as well, with having the courage and the challenge to just always improve and be better and get to that next rung of the ladder. And as you say, with the 75-80%, that gives you the 20% for the growth, for the challenge to really step up. Thank you. And last but not least, we have Tom.
Hi, everyone. I'm Tom. I am not a migrant, and I've only been a mentor for about a month, maybe slightly longer than Osama, but not much. I joined Migrant Leaders. I was looking at trying to mentor, though I didn't really know or recognize that word when I first started looking. And whilst I'm not a migrant, Ellen's message really resonated with me. I don't want to talk too much politics, but it just made a lot of sense. And a bit like, as Pooja was saying, it's helpful having people with a very different background to you and a different view set. That sort of goes both ways. I'm learning a lot from my mentee and having a mentee, in partly because we have such different backgrounds. So I grew up on a farm in the south of England. I now live in Tottenham. I think I'm fairly normal, but I think everyone thinks they're fairly normal. I wasn't great at school. I wasn't bad at school. I got enough grades to go to university, but I didn't enjoy school. And I often got quite down thinking, oh, well, people say school is the best time of your life, and then I'm not liking it now, so I'm not going to like the future too much. Not true. I found even though I wasn't great at school or university, I'm much better in my career. I just find that a lot more fulfilling. And that was something that I really appreciated on graduating. But I'm getting ahead of myself. I studied engineering at Durham, which is a really beautiful university town. It was a really lovely place to be and had quite a nice sort of social area. I put in there that I met my wife there as well. University is very useful for getting jobs, but you can benefit in other ways. I also did some internships whilst I was there, one of which was really fun and had a climbing wall, which is why I put it in there. You don't assume workplaces are going to have climbing walls, but that one did. Like Maya, I also graduated into the COVID pandemic, which is probably the worst time to graduate. I had a job unofficially lined up with a major car company, which just fell through, just disappeared. So I was desperately looking for jobs, and through a friend of a friend, through my network, a job at a company called Cable Consulting International came up. I had never thought about cables or power before and had no interest really whatsoever, but I was like, well, I'll give it a go. It sounds interesting. I could learn something here, and I did. And I was really, really lucky to get that role. It was a really interesting role. It was a very small company, about 10 other employees, all of whom were substantially older than me, but had a huge amount of experience and were generally regarded as industry experts and really technically capable. And I was learning a huge amount there, becoming a sort of technical subject matter expert. And despite being a graduate or only a year into my career, very senior people at companies were looking up to me and wanting my thoughts in this very technical matter. And yet, after about 2 years, I was beginning to realize I wasn't fitting, and that was quite a hard thing to realize when everyone's looking at you, respecting you, saying, oh, you're so lucky to be working there, it's such a great company. But it just wasn't resonating with me. Whilst it was a great place to become a technical expert, I really wanted to work in a team, manage some teams, work with people. I wasn't fully interested in just being a subject matter expert. So eventually I realized that and allowed myself to start looking elsewhere. And then I applied to another consultancy, which was focused more on offshore wind, but was a bigger team, much more team focused. And instead of being fully called in just to solve technical issues, it was solving much larger issues. And just a different bunch of people, a nice bunch of people, and more opportunity to have that sort of team feel. I really enjoyed being there. I was there for about 2 years. And after that, I had worked in consultancy for about 4 years and realized that I wanted to in order to grow, it'd be helpful for me to understand the requirements of the people we were consulting for. So an opportunity came up to work for BP in offshore wind, and I took it. I thought it was a great chance to get some developer experience. So I now work in offshore wind at BP. I'm between different teams. That's something that I have noticed, and a few other people were touching on it, that often different teams struggle to communicate well, and that I sit between a technical engineering, very technically dominated team, and then we have finance teams who are very focused on spreadsheets and costs. And then we have consenting teams that are very focused on things like bird surveys and all of the consenting and permitting issues and the legal issues. And I sort of sit between them, trying to help these different teams communicate, and as I think Pooja was mentioning, bridging between different teams, which I find really, really rewarding. Some people really, really hate, and I think that's a really important thing. It's just because there's the right thing for someone doesn't mean it's right for you. And that's something that sort of echoed throughout my career. I found myself in places where either it's worked for me and wouldn't for someone else, or it is not working for me, even though it would be working well for others. So I've been a bit quick going through, but we're quite short on time. But mainly the things that I've learned, I've written there is by focusing on things that I enjoy, things that I'm learning more, I find it a really interesting way of working and just makes work more enjoyable. And then when you realize that it's time for a change or things aren't working, just be open to taking those. I put off applying to the job at Exodus for about 6 months just because everyone was telling me I was lucky to be at Cable Consulting. So I just delayed making that transition, and really I should have made it earlier because it wasn't working and I knew that, but I just wasn't listening to myself. And then the main thing is working with people. The people you work with make the biggest difference. My favorite job ever, which I haven't even listed here, was packaging in a warehouse when I was about 17, purely because the person I was standing next to on the line was absolutely hilarious. I'd come in at 7 in the morning and just spend 8 hours laughing. It was the worst job in terms of if you look at sort of what you'd see on the description and pay and everything, but it was the best job in terms of job experience. I really, really loved that. So yeah, I'm happy for any questions if anyone wants to talk about engineering, or any of sort of studying engineering, getting chartered status in engineering. I'm more than happy to reach out and speak one-to-one.
Thank you, Tom. And a very different career path on this one, from not enjoying school to then going to Durham and then being at BP now. So aspirational in every way as well. Thank you. Mohammed, on to some questions.
Yes, so we received loads of questions, and yet again I selected 3 based on comments. So the first one is for Pooja. So the question is, how was your experience with British Airways and what inspired you to become a sales project manager?
I think it's one of the best companies I've ever worked for, though I say that, I went to TfL and I loved TfL, and I went to Royal Mail and I loved Royal Mail, and I love Guardian now. So, but I think as a company that gave me the most broad experience and great training and solid foundations, loved British Airways, because the presence is quite international. So you get a lot of different perspectives. Because it's such a global organization, you get to work with some wonderful people. You get to learn some really great processes. So yeah, experience with British Airways was fascinating. And as I said, very grounding and great training ground, great experience and great people and great mentors and people I still am in touch with. Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
And what inspired you to become a sales project manager?
So as I said, my background is sales and marketing. I'm an MBA in sales and marketing. After economics, I did that. So obviously it was a natural progression to do sales. I guess the project management side of me was more the logical, and the project management is all about making sure you control a project to its delivery, quality, budget. So yeah, that's natural side of me, the controlling side of me and the logical side of me came together.
Thank you very much, Pooja. The next question is for Osama. So the question is, Osama, how would you describe the work-life balance while working at KPMG?
So I would describe it as the way things have significantly changed over the past, God knows, 5-6 years, is it is now completely within your own gift to control your work-life balance, right? You get to choose, you get to be flexible, whereas previously you weren't really given a choice. You had to, back in my audit days, we worked weekends, we worked evenings. It wasn't great. And now so much so that if as a leader you are not following the right work-life balance, like today is an exception for migrant leaders that are here, your career will not go further. You have to set the right role modeling for others to follow, because it's just not healthy anymore, right? That's you get less value from people. So I've seen a huge shift. Is there still a lot to do in comparison to the rest of the industry? Yes, there is. Because at the end of the day, we sell people. So we still have a lot to do to catch up with the rest of the industry, but it is a lot better and is actively making changes across the professional services organizations.
Thank you very much, Osama. And the final question is for Tom. So Tom, you graduated into a pandemic. What helped you to stay positive while graduating, while navigating through a tough job market through pandemic?
I wish I had an answer to that. It was quite a bad time, and I don't think I did very well staying positive. But I tried to just remember that it's okay to have bad days. It's okay to get a rejection. It's okay to get 10 rejections. Just because today was a bad day, try not to let that make tomorrow a bad day. It's okay to have sort of one bad day, but turning that into a bad week is something you have control on. Now I've realized exercising really helps. So I quite often try, and if I'm realizing I'm feeling a bit negative or struggling, and there's some messages in chats about mergers. So BP is quite an interesting time to be in at the moment. I find I can trying to just exercise and get outside really helps getting away from screens and just letting your brain be free. But yeah, don't be afraid of bad days, and some of life is a bit negative and a bit hard, but that doesn't mean the future will be.
Thank you very much, Tom. Neha, over to you.
Thank you so much to all our mentors for today. Mentees, please do connect with our mentors through LinkedIn. And if you'd like to explore further in terms of questions, I'm sure they'll be able to connect with you on the Migrant Leaders mobile app as well. But thank you so much. Thank you again to the mentors for your career stories, for joining, and for helping our mentees. Thank you so much.